How's everybody doing? Okay, we are doing part two of Libra and Scorpio. We're gonna jump right in because I gotta take for granted that everything is going right because I just don't know if things are going to go right because I get cut off. Well, anyway, I want to be able to now flip it and talk about the Scorpio man and the Libra woman. And let me tell you, it's about 4:30 in the morning, and boy, it is quite something to talk about the Scorpio man and the Libra woman, because this is a combination dealing with incompatibility of signs, where there's a harmonious relationship between the elementals, but not a modality harmony. Uh, a cardinal and a fixed is considered a square and doesn't function very well. So if there's going to be some kind of discomfort, if there's going to be some kind of incompatibility that may express itself, and it usually doesn't happen initially in the relationship. It usually happens down during the course of it, but it never happens initially. Again, every relationship goes through its honeymoon phase. This is one of those combinations where the honeymoon phase can cloak and hide other things going on that you might not normally notice initially on the surface. And that actually is very true with most signs, whether it's compatible or incompatible, which is why it's always very necessary that when you enter a relationship, no matter if you're young or at your prime or entering a middle age, you always have to be very cautious and kind of have bullet points of what you can assess. This is why my videos and my take on astrology might be a little bit different than astrologers that are much younger than I am. You know, you have the astrologers that are in their 20s. They usually come from an academic point of view and certainly an idealistic point of view. But you really can't blame them. I was 21 or 22 once, so I also can say that I've been in that kind of same situation where I looked at it from a point of view of how can I put it? I put it in I looked at it in a point of view where intellectually, based on what I learned textbook wise on astrology, I assumed that in reality, human experience of relationship and even individuality will fall a textbook kind of cut out, cookie cutter type of synthesis that will allow me to know a person whether or not age and sex and culture and religion and upbringing didn't factor in it. That's very naive. But you have to start somewhere. At 50 years old, doing charts since I was at 19 years old, I've seen the reality, the fiction, the idealism, the paper versus the real person's empirical experiences based on what you see on the chart or what you not see on your chart, and based on your own level of education and your own level of sophistication and evolution. You can see parallels beyond the framework of astrology in which you are trained to work in. Because human nature eventually reveals itself to you, especially if you have a genuineness in trying to decode the very fabric of human nature. And there's no better way to do that than to examine interpersonal relationships, how we relate to each other on an interpersonal level, romantic level, or platonic level. It really says a lot about the process of humanity's journey on its way to becoming enlightened and being in a state of divinity, where we conquer the animal nature within us. This combination with cardinal air, Libra, and fixed water, Scorpio, it fits the archetypical necessity, the evolutionary necessity to evolve. Scorpio is quite fixed. Scorpio, it's almost impossible to expect Scorpio to evolve at the clock of somebody else. Not gonna happen. Usually, a timing factor and almost a fatalistic karmic connection or association is correlated with meeting a Libra or any other sign of the zodiac. Like I had mentioned in my Scorpio videos and even in the last one, part one, when you meet a Scorpio, it's far more than just an attraction. Sure, the attraction is the honey or the gateway to get you in there. But if the universe really sends a Scorpio your way, understand that there is an evolutionary process that has to undertake or undergo. And you have been selected by the universe to go through this kind of transformation. And any transformation that deals with Pluto or Scorpio is never going to be easy. Let's put that out there first and foremost. Let me tell you, if you're going to, as a Scorpio man, be with a Libra woman, understand, again, you might need to watch my my Libra videos, the Libra women 1 and 2, because this is another morsel that you're not going to be able to conquer. She may like the dick, and love sex with you, Mr. Scorpio, but like Mrs. Scorpio dealing with Mr. Libra, with the Scorpio man is going to require just one thing from you: absolute loyalty and commitment. And maybe even at a sacrificial level, just give up everything about you, about what you stand for, even your own desire of life, and completely surrender yourself to him, body and soul. And Miss Libra, I know that you are not going to do that for any man. You don't even do that for yourself, really. So you're not going to really do that for no man. So the only person here that really doesn't understand that or even see that is the Scorpio man. The Scorpio man in your hands is fuddy-duddy. Because, the Scorpio man, as clever and as intelligent as he is, and even though he may know that there's a powerful intellect that functions very much like a man in you, that's not going to deter the Scorpio man from trying to control you and subdue you. Because if he doesn't do it deliberately or through the power of his penis or loins, he will do it through other methods. This man is emotional and intensely deep and very cold. He resonates coldness. But there's nothing cold about Mr. Scorpio. This man vibrates, pulsates, a volcanic, magma-like passion that just the heat of it can give you a stroke. But this man is brilliant, as he was created by our Creator, to be such a way that you can never tell or even measure the recesses of his emotional depth and mind, not unless he wants you to know it and experience it. You're not going to know. And quite frankly, Mrs. Libra, you're not going to really care. As long as he gives you the marginal basics, you're fine. You yourself can be quite content with not dealing with so much depth. Because when it comes to the emotions, you really check out, Miss Libra. I mean, you care about your feelings, and you're quite expository concerning your feelings. Oh, you are. You absolutely are. But the problem is that you don't seem to want to acknowledge that in others. And I may be wrong, but it really does appear that way. I mean, you are notorious with that. Quite notorious with that. you don't care, especially if you're young. But the time will come where you will care. You will care. Um, and then you're going to decide whether this is a relationship that you want to take seriously or not. Because if you don't take it seriously, you will probably eventually leave it and not really be bothered with it. You see, on the surface, this relationship is passionate and loving. It is. With Libra enjoying Scorpio's intense jealousy, because that really what's her appetite to see the Scorpio man go crazy and you know, just go goo goo gaga, and you love, as a Libra woman, you love to bring that out in the Scorpion. And the Scorpio does, on the other end, does seem to admire the sociable and easygoing charm, the sexual chemistry between the two of you. And talking about the sexual chemistry between the two of you is quite high. But where Scorpio and Libra compatibility may fall down is on its intellectual index. Because you see, Libra is an intellectual creature. And if he doesn't feel the two vibrate at the level of intellect that he is accustomed to or that he belongs to, then that might become a problem, because then he might start abusing you or seeing you as less than, because he might not perceive you to be as intellectually astute as he is. See, that's where the problem lies. Because Mr. Libra, I'm telling you, he could be an intellectual bigot or an intellectual bully, thinking he knows more than everybody else. It's a fucking problem with Libra. You know, and especially if they're young. And the Libra men young are reckless. What? Look at my Libra videos, the 4 types. What? This is another situation where there has to be a certain level of maturity. Especially if this combination lends towards the Scorpio man being, you know, Scorpio man, and then the woman being, you know, Libra. But it can work the other way too. You know, because you see the Libra woman is not going to exude as much immaturity as the Libra man would. The Libra woman will be more indifferent to how you feel, if it means that she has to accept fault. If she has to accept fault and accept responsibility, she will most likely not acknowledge it, because she doesn't want to acknowledge or admit that she did anything wrong. So she'll be more dismissive, but she'll be nicer about it. Where the Libra man will be rather an asshole, depending if you're dealing with an unevolved type. If you're dealing with a more evolved type, he'll intellectualize his responses. He will even intellectualize the emotional response which he does not give. And if he does give any semblance of an emotional response, trust me that it will be very simulated. Again, this is not to say that Libra is incapable of feeling. Absolutely they are. They just don't care about your feelings. And it sounds ruthless, and it's not that they do this consciously because they are ruthless and because they are mean. No, it's that they don't quite see the logic and invest in the emotions. They really don't see the emotions as anything to really invest any kind of serious intellectual input. They see more of a deterrent to the reasoning faculties of the mind than they do see it as anything helpful. When it comes to intellectual understanding, don't get me wrong. They do believe that emotions has a place, but they never will give it the priority that they give the intellect. And that's the problem with Libra. Because everything is not about the intellect. You know, the human condition has 4 faculties: intellect, emotion, intuition, and perception. You know, just like we have people like the emotional types, which can be narcissistic in nature. You also have those that can be narcissistic in another modality, like the intellectual arrogance that can be exuded. Understand that This is not unique to Libra or to Scorpio, but it is quite pronounced in this type of interpersonal relationship between these two signs. So then, how do you handle a relationship between a cardinal and a fixed? And in this particular dynamic, who will you consider to be the boss? In this case, it will be Libra. It will be Miss Libra. It will be the cardinal sign. Because at the end of the day, she is not going to be completely swayed by the emotional whirlwinds and hurricanes of Scorpio unless she falls in love with him. If she falls in love with him and he finds a way to bind her to the love and still be able to do what he do, then he might catch Mr. Libra in a vulnerable position. But even if that is the case, it's not going to be long lasting. Remember, this is a cardinal sign. Libra eventually will wake up and slay the Scorpion, which will be easy to do because the Scorpion is fixed and he doesn't change. That is probably Scorpio's biggest weakness, is that he's not going to change the game. Oh, trust me, he's a force to reckon with and deal with. And there is no destroying the Scorpion. Eventually, out of the two, Libra will have to concede. And this is the immeasurable power of Scorpio. The Scorpio personality, the Scorpio ego, the Scorpio soul. It's utterly indomitable. So, okay. On the surface, Libra seems very passionate, seems very charming. They got sexual chemistry. The sexual chemistry is very high. But again, it's not that either the sign is unintelligent. Again, they're both highly intelligent, but they operate on very different mental levels. You see, Libra is flighty, which could be the lower level or the lower nature. Hi. Huh?
You could.
Huh?
I was gonna say hi, but
hi.
you're doing a thing.
Yeah.
So I can leave.
Oh no, you good? Yes, we're 1 second. Yeah. You good? You good?
We're good. Okay.
Oh no, no problem.
Okay.
Help yourself to anything.
In the kitchen?
Yes, or at the bar.
Okay. I love you.
You love it too. Okay. Yes. Well, yes, one of my neighbors is here. Yes. So understand that this is just absolutely how could I put it? It's not about being unintelligent. They're both intelligent, but again, like I said, they both operate in different mental levels. And when you operate in different mental levels, those levels and that origin of operating differently goes right back to the value systems in which you were raised and which you come from, your pathos. And both these signs, Scorpio and Libra, come from two polarized different fields of experiences, and based on the education and the level of exposure and the level of outlook that they may have each individually will actually mold the values that they're going to develop within themselves. It may parallel, and then it will make it easier, the union. But if it doesn't parallel, if it's contra-parallel, then it'll be that much more harder to reach a meaning of the minds and develop a cohesion or a fusion in which they can mold their values and create a third type of hybrid of each individual values that will allow them to develop a platform in which they can both respect about each other, because it becomes a new development within the relationship. But see, that is not going to happen while you're young, a young couple. You have to evolve to that level of evolution, So when you are below 30 and you are in a relationship with a Scorpio Libra, I think the beauty of having that type of relationship and being young versus being at your prime in your 30s or over 40, because each age gradient bears a different field of experience, especially with this particular type of combination, And again, we have to add in the factors of education, the level of education, the level of, if you're middle class, upper middle class, if you come from poverty. All these social factors also play tremendously in molding a particular compatibility gradient, depending whether it's incompatible or compatible in astrology. For those of you out there that feel that astrology should not be used as a template to measure the course of human relationship, I may agree with you there, where astrology may not be enough, but only because astrology, there's a gentleman that I mentioned on YouTube, I said that it's a map, but he said that it's more of a compass, and I agree with him or her. It is a compass that allows you how to navigate the energies that are already inherent within you. But it doesn't mean that it is the actual final destination of how a personality, especially within a couple dynamic, should act. The matter of fact is that the Scorpio man, if he chooses you, Miss Libra, then he loves you. He cares for you. But let me tell you right now that the Scorpio man, like the Scorpio woman, is gonna test you, and it's gonna bring out the worst in you, because it's gonna want to see how you act and react based on adversity. Understand that this is the Scorpio nature,
Have a good night.
Oh, good night. Thank you.
You're a rock star. All right.
Thank you.
Good night. I love you. Okay.
You too.
Oh, wait. You have.
Help yourself, please. Yes. Yes, please help yourself. Yeah, I know. I understand that in this dynamic, when you have a Scorpio and a Libra, a cardinal and a fixed, there is a form of modality that requires a certain level of discipline. If that level of discipline is not there, then please understand that this relationship will not work, because there has to be a certain level of discipline. Now, the Scorpio will, woman or man, will bring that discipline. The problem becomes with Libra. The Libra male or the Libra female will probably be more balanced than the Libra male. If we're dealing with the female of the species, right, of the sign of Libra, there should be a collaboration and a cooperation, but it doesn't happen smoothly. There will be a fight, and it'll be a differences of philosophy and an intellectual difference. This is the square between air and water. Which one do you choose? The emotion or the intellect? This is the square, and this is what can lead to irreconcilable differences between the couple. This irreconcilable difference is absolutely present when you are much younger. As you evolve, as the couple evolves, it does begin to morph into a fusion. But then again, it has to survive the rough patches. If it doesn't survive the rough patches, then, and again, this is with a Libra woman, with a Scorpio man, or vice versa, then you're never going to get to see the fruit of the labor, the fruition of what could be. Libra is beautiful, and Scorpio is very caught up with the beauty of Libra. Libra is fascinated with the different quixotic behaviors of the Scorpio male, despite his sexiness and the dark nature of his sexuality. But the Libra woman, although she is like deliciously fantasizing about it, she will most likely relive that in her head, being a little bit afraid of the actual experience of being involved with such an intense man. But if the Libra woman lends herself to, she will learn so much more about herself, more than she probably ever thought she could. And that in itself lends and awards her to go to the experience, throw herself to the experience of being with a Scorpio man, because there's nothing like a Scorpio man. And we're done with this combination.